One evening, they walked together along the familiar streets where their silent love had once been protected by distance. The lamps cast a warm glow, and the mist hung lightly in the air. He stopped suddenly and turned to her, his eyes searching hers, his voice quiet but steady. "I don't want to keep losing time with you," he said. "I can't ignore this anymore. I care about you, more than I should have allowed myself." Her heart raced, but she kept her calm exterior, letting the moment breathe. "I've waited," she whispered. "I've waited quietly for so long that I don't know if I can be patient anymore." He took a deep breath and reached for her hand, this time without hesitation. "Then don't be. Let me in. Let us try, honestly, without silence, without fear." The truth of it washed over her. Relief, joy, and a quiet certainty she had never allowed herself to feel before. For so long, she had loved him from the shadows, thinking her feelings were secondary, believing that loving quietly was safer. But now, standing in the same street where they had once passed countless unspoken moments, she realized that love had a way of insisting on being seen. "I've loved you quietly," she admitted, her voice breaking only slightly. "But I don't want any more. I want this. I want us." He smiled, gently, and pulled her closer, letting their hands entwine fully. The quiet that had once defined them was gone, replaced by the steady warmth of a love finally acknowledged. For the first time, they both understood that timing was no longer the enemy. The past months of restraint, of silence, of longing, had prepared them for this moment, a love that could finally be spoken, touched, and shared without apology. And in that shared space, under the glow of street lights and misted air, they found what they had been waiting for all along: each other. When you're ready, say next session, and I'll continue with session 9, the final session, where their love is fully embraced and the story concludes with emotional closure and reflection. The days that followed were different, in the most subtle but profound ways. Loving him quietly had taught her patience, endurance, and the strength of the heart when words are scarce. Loving him openly now, finally, felt like sunlight after a long, dim winter, warm, illuminating, and entirely new. They moved slowly, cautiously, as if testing the waters of this new reality. Every touch was intentional, every conversation deliberate. There was laughter now, unrestrained and light, and there were moments of silence too, but these were no longer filled with fear or longing. They were filled with contentment. The quiet love that had once burdened her heart had transformed into a shared understanding, a gentle intimacy that could only exist when both hearts were fully present. She marveled at the change in herself. The tension she had carried for months, the constant worry of being invisible in his world, had finally lifted. She no longer feared speaking her feelings or showing them. She no longer felt the ache of waiting. And he too had changed. The man she had loved quietly was now aware, attentive, and devoted, not because he had to be, but because he wanted to be. One evening, they sat together where it all had begun, the quiet cafe, the soft glow of lamps, the faint sound of rain against the windows. He reached across the table, taking her hands in his, and looked into her eyes with an honesty she had longed to see for so long. "I know now," he said softly, "that you've loved me all this time, even when I didn't notice. And I'm so grateful you waited. You didn't just love me, you carried me with you, even in silence. And I don't want to waste another moment." She smiled, tears brimming but held steady. "I loved you quietly because I wanted you to feel safe, to be yourself without pressure. But I never stopped loving you. Not for a second." They sat there, hands entwined, hearts synchronized in a quiet harmony they had both earned. There was no need for grand gestures or loud confessions. Their love existed fully, silently strong, and now openly shared. It had survived restraint, distance, and the testing of time. And that made it stronger than anything either of them had imagined. From that night on, nothing was quiet anymore. Not because the love had become loud, but because it had been acknowledged, felt, and returned. They laughed, they spoke, they dreamed together. She no longer had to measure her words or swallow her feelings. He no longer had to search for signs she was there. Every glance, every touch, every shared smile was a declaration in itself. And yet, even in the fullness of their love, they carried the memory of the quiet months. She remembered the ache of unspoken words and the depth of patience it had required. He remembered the fragility of moments he had almost missed. Those months of quiet love became the foundation of the life they were now building, a testament to endurance, understanding, and the power of love that waits, even when the heart is tested. She loved him quietly once, but she learned, finally, that love could also be loud, proud, and free, and that some hearts are worth waiting for, worth nurturing, and worth finally allowing to be seen. And as they walked home that night, hand in hand, under the gentle glow of the city lights, she realized something she had always known deep down. Quiet love is never wasted. It simply waits for the right moment to be fully felt, fully returned, and fully cherished. And that was the story of She Loved Him Quietly, a tale of patience, endurance, and love that waits. Sometimes love is quiet, hidden in the spaces between words, in gestures too small for anyone else to notice. And sometimes that quiet love has the power to change everything, if only it's given the chance to be seen. Did this story remind you of someone you've loved quietly? Or someone who has loved you without your knowing? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might touch someone else, just like this one touched you. If you enjoyed this journey of the heart, make sure to subscribe to Love Storyn Lounge and hit the bell so you never miss another late-night love story. Share this audiobook with someone special, someone who needs to feel the depth, patience, and beauty of love that waits. Remember, love doesn't always arrive loudly or perfectly. Sometimes it waits, it teaches, it grows quietly. And when it's finally acknowledged, it is all the more powerful. Keep your heart open and let these stories remind you that love is always worth feeling, always worth waiting for, and always worth sharing. I didn't tell you because I wanted something from you, she said. I told you because I couldn't carry it alone anymore. They sat there, two people who cared deeply, separated not by lack of feeling, but by difference in direction. She realized then that love doesn't always fail because it isn't strong enough. Sometimes it fails because it arrives in two hearts at different times. As they parted that day, nothing was resolved, but nothing was hidden anymore either. And for the first time in a long while, the silence felt honest. After that day, everything slowed. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no angry messages, no sudden disappearances. Instead, there was space. Quiet, careful space that neither of them knew how to cross anymore. The words she had finally spoken lingered between them, changing how every interaction felt. Silence was no longer just hers. It belonged to both of them now. He reached out less, not because he didn't care, but because he was afraid of doing the wrong thing. She felt it in the hesitation of his messages, in the way conversations ended sooner than they used to. She understood his confusion. Still, understanding didn't stop the ache. For the first time in a long while, she began to focus on herself. Not because she wanted to forget him, but because she needed to survive the weight of loving him. She filled her time with small routines, quiet moments that didn't belong to anyone else. And yet, everything reminded her of him. The places they used to sit, the songs he liked, the thoughts she still wanted to share with him first. Sometimes, late at night, she wondered if she had ruined everything by speaking. But then she remembered how close she had come to losing herself in silence. Truth had cost her comfort, but it had given her something steadier, clarity. He, on the other hand, began to see her differently. Without her constant presence, he noticed the absence she had created in his life. He realized how much he had leaned on her without ever questioning why she was always there. And in the quiet moments, he wondered if he had mistaken her patience for permanence. They met again weeks later, unexpectedly. The moment felt fragile, like glass. He smiled, softer than before. She returned it, careful not to reopen wounds that hadn't fully healed. I've been thinking about what you said he admitted. She nodded, her heart steady but alert. "So have I. I never meant to hurt you," he said. "I just didn't see it." "I know," she replied, and she meant it. They talked, slowly, honestly, without pressure. There was no attempt to go back to how things were. Both of them knew that chapter had closed, but there was something new now: respect, awareness, and a quiet understanding of what they had meant to each other. As they parted again, she realized something unexpected. Loving him quietly had shaped her, taught her patience and depth, but letting go, just a little, was teaching her strength. Love didn't always need to be held to be real. Sometimes releasing it was the most honest form of care. Still, the story wasn't finished. Not yet, because some connections don't end loudly. They fade slowly, testing whether distance will erase them or reveal what was hidden all along. Time did what it always does. It softened some edges and sharpened others. Weeks turned into months. Life continued, demanding her attention in ways that felt unfamiliar but necessary. She laughed more easily now, slept better, learned how to exist without waiting for his presence to validate her day. The quiet love she once carried so carefully had loosened its grip, but it had not disappeared. It had simply changed its shape. Occasionally, she heard from him. Short messages, simple check-ins. Nothing heavy, nothing that crossed the line they had carefully redrawn. And yet, each time his name appeared on her screen, something stirred gently in her chest. Not pain, not longing, but recognition. He had changed too. She could hear it in his voice the rare times they spoke. He was more thoughtful now, more aware of what he said and how it might land. Distance had taught him something he hadn't learned while she was always there. Her presence had been a gift, not a given. One evening, he asked if they could talk. Not casually, not lightly. There was intention in his tone. They met somewhere neutral, a place without shared memories. It felt safer that way. As they sat across from each other, she noticed how carefully he chose his words, how his eyes searched hers with a seriousness she hadn't seen before. "I didn't realize what I was losing," he said quietly. "Not until you stepped back." She listened, her heart steady. This time, she wasn't bracing for disappointment. She wasn't hoping either. She was simply present. "I miss you," he continued. "Not just being around you. I miss who I was when you were there." She absorbed his words slowly. They were honest, but honesty didn't always mean love. And she had learned not to fill in gaps with hope. "I cared about you deeply," she said, "but I can't go back to being quiet about what I feel." He nodded. "I wouldn't want you to." They sat with that truth between them. The past no longer hurt the way it once had, but it still mattered. What surprised her was how calm she felt. Loving him quietly had once defined her. Now, she was learning how to love herself enough to require clarity. "I don't know what this means," he admitted, "but I know I don't want to lose you again." She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, she saw not a possibility, but a person standing at a crossroads, just like she once had. "Then whatever this becomes," she said gently, "it has to be honest. No more silence." He agreed, and in that agreement, something fragile but real began to form. Not a promise, not a resolution, but a shared willingness to see each other clearly. Quiet love had brought them here, but whatever came next would have to speak. The days after that meeting felt different. The air around them seemed lighter, yet somehow heavier too, carrying the weight of what had been said and left unsaid. They began seeing each other more, but nothing was rushed. Every conversation, every glance, every touch was deliberate, measured, as if they were both learning how to exist in a space where love could finally be acknowledged without fear. She noticed things she hadn't before. How his eyes softened when he looked at her. How his voice carried warmth even in casual conversation. How the simplest gesture, a hand brushing hers, a shared smile, could ignite something inside her she had thought she had put away forever. She loved him quietly still, but now the quiet was tinged with hope, with possibility, with a fragile courage that she was finally letting grow. He noticed her too, the subtle changes in her demeanor, the confidence she carried now that she had spoken her truth. He found himself thinking about her constantly, wondering why it had taken so long for him to see what had been in front of him all along. And every time he reached for her hand, every time he lingered a moment too long, it was no longer the danger of what might be lost. It was the thrill of what could finally be shared. She began to pull back in subtle ways, not answering immediately, leaving conversations a little earlier, saying, "I'm busy," when she wasn't. Each small act of distance felt like tearing something fragile, but it also felt necessary. She needed to know if her absence would matter. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life where she didn't revolve around him. The thought frightened her. He had become a constant, a familiar warmth she carried everywhere. Letting go of that, even partially, felt like stepping into the cold. Then one evening, unexpectedly, he showed up. She hadn't told him where she would be. She hadn't invited him. But there he was, standing just outside her door, uncertainty written across his face. "You've been quiet," he said. "I just wanted to check on you." Her heart stumbled. Not leapt, stumbled. Because concern wasn't the same as love, and she knew that. Still, the fact that he noticed her absence stirred something dangerous inside her. They talked for a long time that night, about everything and nothing. About life, about change, about the feeling that something unspoken was hanging between them. She almost said it then. She almost crossed the line she had guarded for so long. But fear held her back. Fear of losing him completely. Fear of changing what they had into something fragile and uncertain. So she stayed silent again. As he left, he paused, as if searching her face for something he couldn't quite name. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" he said. She nodded, smiling in that familiar, careful way. But inside, her heart whispered a truth she was no longer sure she could live with. Some things, once left unsaid for too long, become impossible to say at all. And the silence between them grew heavier, not because nothing was happening, but because everything was, after that night, things were not the same. They were not broken either, which somehow made it harder. The space between them felt charged now, filled with things neither of them dared to name. She felt it every time he looked at her a second longer than usual, every time his voice softened when he spoke her name, every time he hesitated before leaving. She tried to convince herself that it meant nothing, that she was only seeing what she wanted to see. But the heart is rarely fooled by its own longing. He started reaching out more, small messages, simple questions, moments that felt unnecessary but intentional. And with each one, her resolve weakened. She had built her silence carefully, brick by brick, but now it threatened to collapse under the weight of hope she hadn't invited back in. One evening, they walked together without purpose, the kind of walk that happens when neither person is ready to return to their separate lives. The air was cool, the streetlights soft, and the world felt distant enough that honesty seemed possible. She felt it rising in her chest again, that urge to speak, to finally stop protecting herself from a truth that was already hurting her. He stopped walking suddenly. She turned to face him, her heart already racing. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She nodded, even though every part of her wanted to run. "Have I done something wrong?" His voice was quiet, sincere. "You feel farther away." The question broke something open inside her. Not because it accused her, but because it showed he cared, just not in the way she needed. She wanted to tell him that loving someone quietly changes you, that carrying unspoken feelings makes distance feel like survival. But instead, she chose the safer truth. "No," she said, "you haven't done anything." He looked at her, unconvinced. "Then why does it feel like I'm losing you?" The words stayed suspended between them. "Losing you?" She almost laughed at the irony. He had never truly had her, not in the way she wanted to be had. Yet the thought of him feeling her absence tightened something deep in her chest. She swallowed the confession again. "Sometimes people just grow," she said softly. "It doesn't mean anything bad." He nodded slowly, but his eyes searched hers, as if hoping she would say more. She didn't, and just like that, the moment passed, leaving behind a silence heavier than any argument could have been. That night, alone, she finally admitted the truth to herself. She was standing at the edge of something that could not remain unchanged. Loving him quietly had protected her for a long time, but now it was slowly erasing her. She could either keep pretending or risk everything by speaking. What frightened her most wasn't rejection. It was the possibility that he would finally understand and still not choose her. And so she lay awake, listening to her own heartbeat, knowing that the quiet love she had guarded for so long was nearing its breaking point. The moment came not with a confession, but with exhaustion. She hadn't planned to say anything that day. She woke up already tired, the kind of tired that lives deeper than the body. Carrying love in silence had worn her down, and for the first time, she didn't have the strength to pretend everything was fine. They met by chance, not intentionally. A familiar place, a familiar time. He smiled when he saw her, the same easy smile that had undone her so many times before. But she couldn't return it fully this time. Something in her eyes gave her away. "You don't look okay," he said gently. She almost laughed. The words were simple, but they cracked something open. She had been waiting for someone to notice, not the silence, but the cost of it. They sat together, the space between them smaller than usual. The air felt heavy, expectant. She stared at her hands, gathering courage she wasn't sure she still had. Loving him quietly had taught her restraint. Speaking now felt like stepping off a cliff. "I don't know how to be here anymore," she said finally. He turned toward her, concern etched across his face. "What do you mean?" She took a slow breath. This wasn't the confession she had imagined. There were no dramatic words, no declarations of love. Just truth, worn down and trembling. "Being close to you hurts," she said softly, "and pretending it doesn't is getting harder." The silence that followed was different from the ones before. It wasn't empty. It was full of realization, of fear, of something shifting between them. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush her, and that kindness nearly broke her. "I care about you more than I should," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been trying to keep it quiet because I didn't want to lose you, but I think I'm losing myself instead." Her chest tightened as she waited for his response. She had imagined rejection, distance, even anger. What she hadn't expected was his confusion. He looked away, then back at her, searching for the right words. "I never knew," he said slowly. "I swear I never knew." She nodded. "I know. That's why it hurts." He reached for her hand instinctively, then stopped himself, as if unsure whether he still had the right. "You matter to me," he said, "more than you realize, but I don't know if I can give you what you're asking for." There it was, the truth she had been avoiding. She wasn't angry. She wasn't surprised. She felt something closer to grief, quiet, accepting, deeply personal. Loving him quietly had prepared her for this moment, even if she hadn't known it. Welcome to Love Storyn Lounge. Tonight's story is called She Loved Him Quietly. This is not a loud love story. It is not filled with dramatic confessions or grand gestures. It is about the kind of love that lives in silence, in patience, in the spaces between words. It is about loving someone without being seen, about choosing presence over possession, about holding feelings gently, even when they are heavy. Find a comfortable place, put on your headphones, and let the story begin. She loved him quietly long before she understood what love was supposed to feel like. It started in the smallest ways, ways that didn't announce themselves. The way her eyes searched for him when she entered a room. The way her mood shifted depending on whether he was near. The way his laughter settled into her chest and stayed there long after the sound had faded. She never told him. She never planned to. Loving him was something she carried like a secret, careful not to let it spill. They worked together, met often, existed in the same spaces enough that his presence became familiar. Too familiar. He spoke easily to her, trusted her thoughts, shared pieces of his day without realizing how deeply she listened. She learned the rhythm of his moods, the quiet moments when he needed space, the days when he talked more than usual. She noticed everything. That was the problem. She was always there, but never in the way that demanded attention. She listened when he spoke about his dreams. She smiled when he talked about the future he imagined, one that never included her. And she smiled well, convincingly, so well that he never questioned it. At night, when the world finally quieted, she replayed conversations in her mind. She wondered if he noticed how her voice softened when she spoke to him, or how she remembered things he forgot he had ever mentioned. She wondered if he could feel the weight of her silence, the words she swallowed every day just to keep things easy, uncomplicated, safe. He talked to her about other women sometimes, not with cruelty, never that, just casually, thoughtlessly, the way people do when they assume your heart is untouched. Each time, she nodded, offered advice, laughed in the right places. And each time, she felt herself fold inward a little more. She never resented him. That was the hardest part. He was kind. He was honest. He was exactly who he had always been. It wasn't his fault that her heart had chosen him without asking permission. There were moments, small, dangerous moments, when she thought he might see her, when their eyes held a second too long, when his hand brushed hers and lingered, when he said her name softly, as if it meant something more. In those moments, hope rose before she could stop it, and then it settled back into silence where it belonged. She loved him quietly because loving him loudly would have ruined everything. The friendship, the closeness, the safety of being near him at all. Silence felt like the price of staying. And so she stayed, listening, caring, loving him in a way that asked for nothing in return. She did not know yet that quiet love leaves the deepest marks. And she did not yet understand how much it would cost her to keep loving him this way. Loving him quietly was easy at first. It felt noble, almost peaceful. There was comfort in knowing that she could care without expectation, that her feelings belonged only to her. But time has a way of changing quiet things. What once felt gentle slowly began to feel heavy. The more she learned him, the harder it became to pretend she didn't care. She noticed how he grew silent when he was tired, how his shoulders tensed when he was worried, how he stared into nothing when something bothered him, but he didn't want to talk about it. And because she loved him, she became his safe place. He talked to her when the world felt too loud. He trusted her with thoughts he didn't share easily. Sometimes, when they sat together in comfortable silence, she wondered if he could feel it too, the way her heart leaned toward him, the way her presence was never accidental. But he treated her the same way he always had, warmly, honestly, without suspicion. To him, she was simply there, reliable, constant, and that constancy became her quiet suffering. There were days she told herself she could stop, that she could pull back, create distance, remind her heart of its place. But love doesn't respond well to reason. Every attempt to care less only made her aware of how deeply she already cared. One evening, he called her later than usual. His voice was low, tired, carrying something unspoken. He talked about his day, about frustrations that hadn't gone his way, about feeling stuck in a life that didn't quite fit him anymore. She listened, as she always did, offering words that steadied him, words she wished someone would offer her. "You understand me," he said softly at one point, almost absent-mindedly. The words stayed with her long after the call ended. She understood him because she paid attention, because she loved him, because she had made space for him in places she didn't even make space for herself anymore. That night, she lay awake wondering how long she could keep doing this, how long she could be the one who held him together while quietly falling apart herself. Loving him without being chosen began to feel less like patience and more like loss. She started noticing the absence of things she wanted but would never ask for. She wanted him to look for her first. She wanted him to wonder where she was when she wasn't around. She wanted him to feel, even briefly, the weight of her silence the way she felt the weight of his presence. But instead, he carried on, unaware of the quiet war happening inside her. And she carried on too, smiling, listening, staying. She told herself that love didn't need to be returned to be real, that caring for someone was enough. But somewhere deep inside, a question began to form, one she was afraid to answer. How long can a heart love quietly before it starts to break? The answer was coming, whether she was ready or not. The shift didn't happen all at once. It came slowly, disguised as small changes she almost ignored. She noticed it first in herself, the way she hesitated before answering his calls, The way her laughter didn't come as easily anymore. Loving him quietly had started to cost her pieces of herself, and she was beginning to feel the weight of what she was losing. He noticed too, though he didn't understand it. "You've been distant lately," he said one afternoon, not accusing, just curious. The concern in his voice unsettled her more than any confrontation would have. She wanted to tell him everything right then. She wanted to say his name, followed by the truth she had carried for so long. But instead, she smiled softly and said she was just tired. He accepted that answer. He always did. That night, she realized something painful. Her silence had taught him that she would always be there, unchanged, no matter what she felt. Loving him quietly had made her predictable, safe, invisible in the ways that mattered most.